Tonight on the Goblin's Corner.
Time periods.
Part 3.
That's how we roll. 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 That's how we roll.
Welcome to the Goblin's Corner. My name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight,
We're doing time periods.
Part 3.
Yes.
This is our third part series in our time periods series.
Yes.
I want to say series a couple more times, but that's what it is.
Why so serious?
That's why so serious, in fact. And tonight we're going to talk about the modern age and some possible future timelines.
To the future.
Yeah, we're going back to the future. Great Scott. But before we get to that.
We've got a question of the week.
That's right, we do. So hit me. What do we have?
All right, here's what I'm going to need you to do. I'm going to need you to invent cyberware specifically tailored to you.
To me.
If you lived in Shadowrun or, something in that kind of time frame setting, what would it be and why?
So I'm a shadow runner. I've got an awesome cloak or perhaps a leather jacket.
Sure.
That whips majestically in the steel streets of the concrete jungle.
Yeah.
I know, that didn't make any sense, but it's
fine.
fine.
It's fine. It just, you don't want it to whip majestically because, let's face it, it's armored.
That's a good point. And I would be a moving target.
Yes.
I would say that given my proclivities for caffeine,
Sure.
I would have an intravenous caffeine system built into my body, much like Bane.
Yeah,
So
I'm with it.
Got the tubes running up on my cyber-chromed arms. I've got, it's running directly underneath the ballistic outerwear and mage-like outerwear on top of that.
Sure.
And at the thought, I would just instantly be caffeinated.
That sounds delightful.
And I would also have the cybernetic amalgam for the taste of coffee specifically.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe with a little amaretto aftertaste to it as well.
Sure.
Just because.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd have a couple flavors. That would also be delightful as well.
Depending on which molar you tap, that's what flavor you're rocking today.
Yeah, now you're talking. Yeah, so that's my cyberware that I would have. What about yourself?
I would have realistically...
You're thinking about that, aren't you? Like, it's good.
Oh, no, that's great. 100%. I love that. I'm not going to deny that because you've met me.
Yeah. I know.
And it would clearly be a lie. I would have a synaptic filter so that all of the video advertising, all of the advertising that ends up on the Matrix, all of that, none of it.
Mnemonic filter that just gets rid of it all?
Yep, just
God, that's great.
all gone.
I would have that as what, you know what?
I would
Both
have
of those.
that today if I had the option.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have both of those today.
Yes.
If that were an option.
Well, sure. Yeah.
That's a great one too. I like that one as well. And I would have that. We'd have to swap patents for those.
just cut through the nonsense.
Yeah, we'd wake up in the morning, no messing around, right? You're caffeinated, you're ready to go. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to have a nice brew.
Right.
But I'm awake enough to enjoy my second cup. And I don't have to deal with spam. Yeah, second cup. Do you have some cyberware, or have you invented something that allows us to wake up faster in the morning? Write to us, info@goblinscorner.com, or you can reach me, Eric@goblinscorner.com, or
me, Matt at goblinscorner.com. You made me think of something, though.
Okay.
You tie it to your alarm clock.
Okay. So there's a if this, then that type thing where the alarm clock goes off and it caffeinates you?
Yes.
We are geniuses, obviously. Someone needs to do this. And if you haven't done this, you should do this and show it to us.
Indeed.
And of course, you can find us on all the things, including
so
Twitter
many things.
and Facebook and Discord and all kinds of other stuff that we sometimes interact with. Now,
mostly Twitter.
We got some time periods to talk about tonight. And this is our third part series, as we mentioned.
Yep. We're going to start with our standard issue disclaimer for this series,
which we've said for the last 2 episodes.
Right. But just in case somebody's just checking in on this one.
This is something that we feel is necessary to say. Right. So first off,
we're not historians.
At all.
Yeah. That's not what we do.
We're a bunch of idiots.
Yeah. We're storytellers. I mean, But we need you to note that, right? We're not historians.
So if you spot inaccuracies with our history, that's most likely true.
Yeah.
It probably is
we
inaccurate.
believe you.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct us. We're happy to be corrected on that stuff. But We're not going to argue if it's incorrect. We know it probably is incorrect.
Yeah.
This has been our preliminary research, which is scouring the web for 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
Slightly longer sometimes for more in-depth pieces. But we are looking at it from a thematics and storytelling perspective, so we're a little fuzzy on the details, and that's fine. You want to play a little more accurate history? Go for it. That's not this show. There's nothing accurate about our show.
Right. There are literally history podcasts for that.
That's true. Part 2.
This is from a Western perspective.
Yep. So if you have other perspectives throughout the world, which I'm sure that people who listen to us are all over the world, right?
Yeah.
We've got listeners in India. We've got listeners in Australia. We've got listeners in South America, Europe, everywhere. Probably on the North Pole for all we know.
Could be.
Could be.
That's still North America, but
Fair enough. I'm not a geography major either.
fair.
So
Fair.
So
No,
there you
fair.
go, right? But we don't know enough other perspectives to give a decent viewpoint, if that.
Yeah. And realistically, it's not our place to talk about that topic.
No, we're talking about
there
games.
are people, well, no, it's just, well, I mean, yes, absolutely that. But also there are people who are better qualified, who live those experiences, who we'd love to share their perspectives versus us taking an outsider's shot at a perspective. That's just not for us to do, I don't think.
I agree with that as well. So because of that, if you have other perspectives you would like us to light upon, hit us up.
Yeah.
We're happy to talk about them. We're just not the experts on that stuff.
Right. And we might just try and find somebody for having a correct perspective on it.
That's called an interview, guys.
Indeed.
Hit us
we do
up.
a couple of those.
We do some interviews sometimes. Part 3, history is nasty. Like,
Yes.
there's a lot of bad parts about history. We're going to talk about some today because we're going to jump into the modern age. Modern warfare is the first thing I'm going to talk about because that is absolutely horrible, right?
Humans can be atrocious.
Yeah, they're garbage. People are garbage. Individual humans sometimes are good. People
But
in
people are
masses,
garbage.
People are garbage.
Yeah.
And as a result, this doesn't mean you should remove these darker aspects of history from your game or your theme, but what you should do is definitely session zero it with your players.
Absolutely.
You don't want to get them angry at you or trigger something nasty or just be that kind of asshole. Don't be that guy.
Right.
You know,
Some people aren't up for a World War II Nazi campaign, right? Like, even if you're fighting Nazis and being the good guy, you should always fight Nazis and be the good guy. But
fair enough.
even if that's what you're doing, there are people who that more personally impacts than others,
Yes.
and they may not be comfortable or prepared to play that game.
There's a lot of sensitive subjects in history that people get upset about. Now, if, again, session zero it, if your players want to play something that's dark, realistic, or just brooding on those types of moral quandaries or subjects, go for it, right? We're not saying you can't. We're saying you should run it by your players first.
Yeah.
It's
Everybody
a game.
needs to be on board.
It's a game. Play it how you want to play it.
Sure.
And finally,
These are generalities. Feel free to mix and match. And every fantasy setting realistically is a combination of multiple time periods and multiple thematics anyway.
yes, look at it like a Golden Corral buffet table. There's all kinds of time periods, all kinds of categories, which we will speak briefly of in a second. You can choose different categories for different time periods to build your game world or to fit the campaign that you're trying to run. So don't take this as the end-all be-all when we run over the stuff that a modern age has to have certain things or a cyberpunk age has to have certain things. Nah, we don't care. You shouldn't care either. We're giving you ideas to brainstorm and write your own games.
Shadowrun has dinosaurs. There you go.
Damn Skippy, man. Got magic and dinosaurs, giant insect shamans chewing on table legs with a top hat and a cloak. I mean, that's my boy, Woody. I had an insect shaman, guys. It was awesome. Won that in a bet. Okay, so we've gotten that out of the way. Let's talk about the categories we will be talking about for each time period as well. First off, society,
Right. Technology,
science,
religion,
art,
magic, and monsters attached to that.
and politics.
And themes for each given time period.
And some example themes.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Cool. Everybody ready? Let's dive in.
Dun dun.
Now we're going to 88 miles an hour.
All right. So we're starting with the modern age. We've finally reached now.
All right. So we've gone from prehistory to the small village set.
My brain went to Spaceballs for a second. It took me a second. I'm trying to filter it out.
Everything we're looking at now, sir. Everything that happened now is happening now. What happened to then? We passed it. When? Just now. We're at now. Okay. So we've gone from a tribal set, right? A little set of families or whatnot, expanded a little bit to maybe a large community or tribe or what have you.
Sure.
A society of some sort. Expanded again to nation states, perhaps.
Yeah.
Maybe even a country.
And some empires during that time period.
It's very true. Yeah. Empire building started in the Bronze Age, expanded more. Now the world is slightly smaller, gone multiple nations and stuff. Expanded again to the Renaissance, where now you're beginning of the global, takeover, imperialism and all that stuff. Expanded again to the industrial age.
Yep.
Modernization, and now we've expanded finally to the global world stage.
Yes.
And that's where we are now. So society in this
time period?
Yeah, well, in our category of time periods, this starts around 1900.
Right.
Moving up to present.
Sure.
And as such, that's more than one time period, obviously, because we go everything from like the end of the Civil War.
Sure, from mail going by boats to going by satellite.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, but, right? Like,
sure.
It's still the modern age in that a lot of the themes of the Industrial Revolution tend to fade at 1900 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And World War I, to a lot of people, is realistically the start of the modern age.
And that makes a lot of sense, because that was when we got into kind of the world change.
Yeah.
Trench warfare, global warfare. Let's talk about some technology, speaking of warfare.
Okay. Well, starting off.
Machine gun.
Sure.
That was, you want to talk about the First World War? Machine guns. And tanks. Trench warfare.
And
mustard
airplanes.
gas. Yeah. Trench warfare, mustard gas, barbed wire, all that type of
yeah, but airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's obviously huge. Man takes to the sky.
Yeah, whether it's a Zeppelin or a plane or whatnot.
Yep.
We had, and of course, we're just spanning that time period up until, 2021, which is when we're recording now.
Sure.
Everything from the incandescent light bulb to LEDs, glow wire, and so forth.
From the very first telephone to the modern internet as we know it.
From the first, Henry Ford automobile to, a bunch of billionaires tossing a Tesla up into space.
Yeah. That's.
How you feel about that, really, Matt?
Oh, I'm not good. This is a storytelling show, not a political show. I'm going to just back down. We also went from the manual card punch computer, which took up a building,
mm-hmm.
to having something that's 1,000,000 times stronger in your pocket.
Yeah, my phone is a supercomputer.
Yep.
At this, it's ridiculous. So we've got a whole span of different technology, and we're not even talking about half of it or even a tenth of it.
No,
I'm not going to get into like chemistry or material sciences or any of the stuff we've built, like engineering, for example. All kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
The skyscraper.
Sure.
Just
realistically,
I
1900s.
got into it. Yeah. Let's talk about science and the various disciplines that make up our technologies, which would expand at the same rate that technology would.
Right. That science is based off of the tools you have for observation. As your tools increase, your science increase. As your science increase, your tools increase. And we are at a point in human history where the ability to create new tools is constantly moving forward at the rate of science. So it's a parallel race.
Yeah. We invented.
Can we come up with a new problem before they can already come up with the solution for it?
And sell it to us. So in the 1900s, you had everything from the invention or the discovery of radioactive isotopes, splitting the atom and the nuclear weapon, to nuclear physics.
Yeah.
It was pretty much, Chemistry, all the advances in chemistry and material sciences,
Medical
biology,
science,
medical
yeah.
science, genetics, for that matter. All of the psychological sciences as well, behavioral sciences, neuroscience.
The simple invention of vaccines.
It's like we're living in a space age now, guys. It's great. And of course, telecommunications.
Sure.
I mean, that is what the last 30 years are known for, the information age.
Yeah.
So thematically, when you're talking about building your game, there's a lot of different technology points you can start your campaign in. A 1970s game looks way different than a 2021 game.
Very much so.
Take the first version of Mage the Ascension and see how it pairs up now.
Oh, you mean because a 5-dot mage power is still less powerful than a cell phone?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go. Well,
I thought that's where you're going.
When it was written,
yeah,
we didn't have a concept of a cell phone. Cell phone's only been around, what, 15 years?
Yeah.
So think about that. That's kind of crazy. Has it been 20 years? We're getting old. That's what it is.
He's getting old.
I'm not getting old. I'm just getting more refined as I age gracefully like a fine red wine. Religion. Let's talk about that.
I'm aged like a scotch. So there's been, within the past 100 years or so, there's been a resurgence in ancient religions. Now, many of them never fully went away, but the popularity and sway of them has certainly increased, especially over the past 30 to 40 years.
Yeah. So you might have a resurgence of those, again, depending upon the period of time, because we could literally do an episode on every decade in the modern age for a role-playing game.
Sure.
So if you're in the 1920s, shooting Nazis because you're Indiana Jones,
or
fighting eldritch horror, what goes behind the door?
Oh, I was going to say
drinking some absinthe and worrying about the skewed geometry.
I was thinking film noir and mafia style.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
You could do that as well. Or, again, 1980s, everybody's got their leggings and denim jackets.
And cocaine.
Nothing but doing lines of coke.
I mean, you had the full onset, especially early 80s, of the punk movement. You had well,
look at early 80s with Stranger Things.
Yeah.
That's a good 80s horror, right? Or the Goonies.
But even Stranger Things was only really able to touch on a couple of things there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So a lot of flavor. The religion deals with that as well, right? Everything from like modern cults.
Yeah.
To ancient religions, as you mentioned.
Or even modern takes on ancient religions.
New philosophies as well
Yeah.
have been invented. Some of which we really don't know.
Yep.
And
that's because new ones are being invented
every day. Some of them are also conspiracy theories. Could be considered religions. And in some ways,
or cults.
Yeah. Some philosophies could also be considered religions at this point as well.
Sure.
Depends on how you think about it. What's up next?
Art.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about art.
Well, in the modern day, certainly presently, right? Classic art styles still exist. There are people still doing fine art, painting, sculpting, all of that.
People doing chiaroscuro and all sorts of, different techniques. What?
I believe that's a word.
It is a word. I trust me on that.
I know, I do.
But you also have a lot of different movements, and the movements were as varied as they were in the Renaissance or Industrial Age.
Sure.
I would say, in fact, more, because now the ideas are speeding up faster than many people can sometimes keep up with.
Sure.
I mean, we went from everything from abstract expressionism to cubism to Dadaism to a lot of other isms, talking about we got Banksy and stuff now. I mean, there's many different types of movements split sometimes within a 10, 15 year window or less.
Sure.
And yeah, digital art now.
And digital art obviously has grown at the rate of computing.
I mean, it
right?
made me
Yeah.
It's the reason I have a job.
Sure. If you go back to 80, I'm going to say 1. I'm probably wrong. Somebody correct me. Feel free. the Dire Straits video, Money for Nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which had barely recognizable computer graphics up into the late 90s, where you had Toy Story and full feature-length blockbuster films that were completely digital. That's a relatively small time span for the types of leap in capability that we've accomplished.
Go watch Toy Story 1 versus the latest one.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to see a leap in technology? Look at some of the modern digital artwork that's coming out now. It's incredible.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's great.
You guys are freaking rock stars.
You guys are great. You should be paid a lot more money. Tell them to pay you more money. So there's a lot of different interesting things. Also, 3D sculpture,
Sure.
3D modeling, digital music, man. EDM, baby.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or even the rise of like synth classical music and anything.
The rise of most modern music is a huge thing. Everything from blues and jazz to, rock, I guess disco, and, but I mean, also like country music, even a lot of classical stuff.
Yeah, literally all of those
the
musical
musics
styles
explode.
Yeah.
And mix and mash. And we got rap.
Sure.
You've got
just hip hop in general.
R&B is where I was going with that. And it just everything mixes together, right?
Gothic, industrial, like okay, we could sit here and name.
We could have a music discussion.
We didn't even say metal, and that would probably get us crucified.
That's true. A lot of good metal
parts of our friends group. So
that's very true. And grunge.
Yes.
All right, we better stop naming things because
here we are
way
now.
Longer.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the force that messes with the equation once again.
Yes. I will take all of those things that actually exist and screw with them. Magic.
So tell me a bit about magic. What can we run in a modern theme? Now, we've got all of the previous things we could have before, and if you don't remember what those are, go listen to parts 1 and 2.
Please. But now we're also going to have the rise of technomancy.
Mm-hmm. So magic which manipulates technology.
Sure.
Or acts in many ways like technology.
We're going to have militarized magics, because you have to assume in a world where magic exists, if science is and scientific warfare is expanding at the rate it's expanding, then magical warfare would also be expanding at a similar rate.
Now, we had magical war wizards and stuff like that in previous ages too, I'm sure, but now it gets to be where it's you got to do with the machine gun casting fireball, right?
Yeah.
And that can happen. Or, you could have someone who literally is casting a spell to get on the internet.
Sure.
How cool is that, right? You can mix and match technology and magic. It's still what most would think separate, but now they're on an equal footing in many ways because one can manipulate the other. Maybe technology can manipulate magic as well.
You could also say, though, that with science having gone as far as it has, if you use magic as a power source, some of the need for some of this war will have been alleviated to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Things like resources like food. If you have a college of freaking druids running around blessing huge swaths of crop.
Yeah, plant growth.
If you go steam instead of diesel and you're using fire elementals to run locomotives and all of that stuff, you don't need the coal. You don't need diesel. So it's possible that in a magical modern time, you could never have had some of the World War IIs or World War Is.
Or some of the modern problems that we currently have now.
Yeah.
Or perhaps, and this is always fun because I have a bit of a darker bent, what kind of problems and ecological disasters came about because of magic?
Yes.
And, the great equalizer is people being stupid.
There's that. And people just not thinking ahead. what happens if you have perfect crops for several years in a row? Does the land just go barren because there's no nutrients in it?
What happens if you have a fireball wand that's a Gatling gun? A Gatling fireball wand? Think about that. Just
I'll let you have that one. And I'll have the Gatling magic missile gun.
that always hits.
Yes.
Yeah, that'd be cool. A lot of different ideas to play with. Now, we should talk about monsters, of course.
Sure. In modern times, I mean, we already have their modern mythology for monsters, right? You've got the Jersey Devil, you've got and I
Slender
understand.
Man,
Yeah. You've got
skunk apes. I know. Go ahead. Cryptozoology is something I love.
yeah. I mean, understand a lot of that cryptozoology started
Way back when.
much further back, but it still exists. And in a world where magic exists, cryptozoology is not a bunch of nuts.
It's real.
It's a type of science.
Yeah. And depending upon how magic is used in your game in the modern age, it could be something like it's known, but nobody sees it, so it lurks just right beyond the veil, like in the Dresden Files.
Sure.
So that's a modern age. He's a wizard. He's, private eye.
Yeah.
Wizard. And there's elves and, goblins and all,
Vampires.
vampires and stuff just rolling around, right? In the modern age. People don't know about it because they're just kind of like right behind everybody's eyes. They guess they're pulling the wool over people.
Like Dawn, if you've read that comic.
Yes, sort of. But it could also be just
outright.
out there, out there in the open. You're in the modern age. There's an elf. Your best friend's a dwarf,
Sure.
just chilling. You go to the craft beer aisle and you meet up with the troll who's swapping stories about pale ales or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't drink craft beer, so I don't know if that's actually
Yeah.
valid.
I mean, they're craft pale ales, certainly.
Okay, good. Thank you. I was worried about that. But it depends on how much involvement for magic and monsters that you want to have. Now, in terms of like assailants, go crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Audiugs in the sewers, sure. Giant crocodile barbarians lurking around, no problem.
just look at the world around you.
Everything is up. I would say, though, that the theme for monsters in the modern age would be things that scare us. So, fast zombies,
Sure.
right? Maybe kaiju.
Yes.
This is my dark lord and master Godzilla. This is the time for him to rise up and destroy everything.
The deep, dark places of the earth are places where you could have swarms of things come out of.
Yeah.
Or giant things rise up from.
Now, we've been talking mostly like modern, but like you could go, early century hollow earth theory on this thing too.
Sure.
I mean, why not? You're in the 1920s, sir.
Yeah. Little good omens, actually.
Yeah, do a little good omens type thing going on. You're in the hollow earth. There's all kinds of dinosaurs and stuff. Your ankylosaur is chilling, about a mile down.
Yes.
So think about some ways you can incorporate monsters into that. And again, where would monsters lurk in the modern world? So would vampires work in the morgue? Or maybe they work the night shift?
Would they work at all? Have they been alive long enough that they just invested reasonably and literally all of the Rothschilds and all of those people are just vampire dynasties?
It could happen.
Yeah.
Maybe the mages are the ones maybe they're financial mages, right? They're working the stock market.
Yeah.
Manipulating the variables and stuff.
Can you imagine how lucrative being a diviner would be
It'd be
in
ridiculous.
the modern world?
Oh, yeah. It'd be ridiculous. All right. Let's talk about politics.
All right. So much as the real world today, to some extent, in a fantasy world, you might have the rise and recognition of monster nations.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are living, thinking creatures.
If they're intelligent, they can vote.
Sure.
How do you get the monster vote? Think about that. Like, seriously, that's a whole nother spin on things. What is humanity when it doesn't matter where you come from, when it's literally a different species that is talking and eating food and potentially robbing you or shacking up with your buddy, right?
Right. And is it only humanoid looking monsters that
Sure.
get to vote. I mean, displacer beasts,
I was thinking Tressum,
Tressum, yeah.
because they would be the internet.
They're intelligent creatures, and
Well, they'd be internet
they have a
memes.
language. Oh,
I Can Has Cheeseburger, but with winged cats. Yeah,
Yeah.
come on. That's
yeah.
that's a given.
The Almirage, the unicorn bunnies.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of one pancake, it's like a stack of pancakes on the
Mhm.
unicorn horn.
How is it that magic works with society and politics? Span the globe, right? We've gone, politics started. We had like monarchies. We had basic republics and so forth. Now everything's gotten more advanced, but we also saw the rise of fascism.
Yeah.
We've also seen the rise of various other types of political situations as well. And how does that affect your game world? And of course, when you throw magic in it, how does it mess up
Everything.
everything? Yeah.
Everything. Because think about the space race and things like that, right? So here's a Matt Staples thought, because I'm a terrible human and I understand that. I'm a wizard. I got a bag of holding. No, I got a portable hole. How much do I charge a corporation to teleport into the atmosphere and drop off this satellite for them?
Oh, that changes the game.
Yeah.
You've already made it to the moon. It's a long distance teleport.
Yep.
You've already got a spell that turns the atmosphere into air.
Yeah, they literally
Breathable.
sent a mage with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to put a teleportation circle up there.
Mm-hmm. Imagine spell jamming in the modern age.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Think about that,
Oh,
guys. Think about that. Build the game. Let us play it. What are some themes, Matt?
Well, obviously, you've got the themes of the world at war,
Mm-hmm.
at whatever world that may be.
Yeah. So, First World, Second World War, potentially Third World War,
Let's hope not, but,
Cold War.
the Cold War. And with that, espionage on a whole new level.
Oh, yes. Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, the whole concept of that didn't come about until the modern age. Organized crime. Organized crime has always exist on some level, but
Now it's a business.
yeah, it absolutely ballooned in the 20s.
Capitalism,
Communism,
all the isms, globalism, and so forth. The beginnings and potentially end of humanity with global warming
Yeah,
or global
or just-
climate change.
yeah, the whole concept of ecological impact really didn't start until this time period.
And then some other themes could be the individual decades as well that you can play with.
Sure.
And those types of stylistic games are a lot of fun. All right. Now we're going to talk about complete theory from this point forward.
Yeah.
Because everything else at this point is not history, it's tropes.
All concepts and storytelling. That's
Yep.
it.
So let's talk about one of our favorite tropes, cyberpunk.
Right.
This would be considered the near future.
Or postmodern.
Postmodern, yeah. What's a postmodern society like? Corporate.
Right.
It's corporate, chummer.
It depends.
On your game.
What direction are you wanting your game world to head into?
So this can be anywhere from 50 years from now, 100 years from now, maybe up to 200-300 years from now.
I honestly think that at the rate we're moving, 100 years from now is still probably the cap for postmodernism.
Well, I'm thinking The Expanse. And that's still kind of postmodern because pretty much everything's the same thing as it is today, except for like a couple of things like the faster travel engine that they have for some ridiculous reason. But it's most of the technology that they had is stuff we could do today or within 50 years.
Sure.
So this is really going to depend on, like you said, where you're going to take this world. Is it going to be a slightly version of the world, a slightly better version of the world? And most of the time, people take aspects of society or technology and then bring it up to 11.
Just turn the volume up.
And look at every slightly future novel that someone's ever written. it's always like, look at Diamond Age, right? Or look at any of William Gibson's cyberpunk stuff, or anybody else's, really, Neil Stephenson stuff, even John Varley, although that's almost post-scarcity with some of the stuff he's written. But it's always like something happens, we focus on like one thing, like this is what happens when information goes crazy, and it becomes a whole world based off this type of information, like, what is it, Ready Player One, right? It's a whole world that's focused around a video game.
Transmet.
Well, Transmet's definitely post-scarcity in many ways, although it's a very gritty, everybody sucks version of it.
Yeah. Well, that's true, I suppose.
So pick a theme or a technology and build your postmodern event around that. Shadowrun, cyber technology, and the Matrix.
Well,
and the Awakening.
Well, I'm
trying to we'll get to the magic in a bit. So those are just a couple of ideas.
Yeah. So let's pop down to technology since you brought it up anyway.
Well, connectivity for one. Universal connectivity in a cyberpunk style game means Big Brother's always watching. What happens when anonymity becomes a myth? We're already starting to learn that now.
Yeah. I was going to say,
what's it going to be like in 50 years when everybody knows when you take a pee, you know, like, or walk into the next room. I mean, it happens now.
Sure.
How can you become anonymous at that point?
Well, first thing you do is get all the smart crap out of your house.
Yes. So technology, obviously, computers.
Sure.
Of all types. Cyberware, our favorite stuff.
Indeed. And with cyberware, most likely, data jacks and the whole concept of true virtual immersion.
Ah, yes. Just jack it into the Matrix and just doing some crime. Or getting on the net.
Sure.
Oh, let's be honest. It'll be for porn. That's what it'll be. It'll be, it's going to be for porn, man. It'll be like, what is it, Strange Days? You ever seen the movie Strange Days?
I have not.
Oh, you should watch that.
I should. It's actually a movie that I put on the list myself and just for some reason haven't gotten around to.
For those of you who have only watched this one episode, if you name a movie, Matt probably hasn't seen it.
That's fair.
What else we have?
The rise of AI. I mean, it's already happening. By the time we get to this point,
it probably is already talking to us.
Possible.
Space travel.
Yeah.
Space colonization. Again, talking to Expanse. They've colonized Mars. They've colonized Ceres, a few other planets. Right?
Yep.
Why not? We could do that.
BioWare and implants.
Yeah.
We're already working on this as well.
Yeah, chummer. Get your arm lopped off. Yep. Replace it with some kind of nifty vat-grown muscle. Yep. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Meme warfare.
Yeah.
Because information is a weapon as well.
Which has clearly, I mean, let's face it, it already exists.
We know this, but now it's been weaponized to the point where you can program responses in humans.
Yeah.
Other types of augments as well. Humanity now is more than the sum of its individual parts. Humanity can either become a collective of individual experiences.
Sure.
So you start getting into like what is called like a super colony or a super hive.
Yeah.
Or we just now are experimenting on ourselves to the point where what does it mean to be human? When you're half chrome or half vat-grown else.
Sure.
What does that mean?
And where's the cutoff? Like, I was discussing with somebody on Twitter. A lot of people feel like that maybe it's a little ableist that you lose essence for simply having a prosthetic, right? My argument has always been you only become less human when you become more than human. If you get a cyber arm that gives you freaking storage compartments and superhuman strength and all of that stuff, that's when it starts biting into your humanity, right? Like
well, what does it mean to be a human with all of the flaws and whatnot?
Right.
I agree with that.
Because it's not until you start carving those flaws away that you start losing what it is to be a human.
I agree. Let's get into a little bit of the sciences that a cyber technology or a postmodern society might have.
Well, obviously you're going to have bioengineering if you've got BioWare and implants.
Any type of advanced engineering, I say, would be fairly standard. So that could be advanced composites.
Yeah.
different like material sciences and stuff like that, reactive materials, stuff that changes according to, like hidden electrode. By the way, all this stuff exists now, but like this is like reactive fibers that maybe when they're struck by a bullet or something, bounce the bullet off or change color, stuff like that.
Low impact, high impact materials.
Yeah.
Basically, and I like your note here. It's all the stuff that TED Talks is talking about will be happening in the next 50 years. Will literally most likely be happening in the next 50 years.
Yeah, all that TED Talk stuff has already happened at this point, and it's now for your consumption.
Yeah.
New fields are invented as old ones are adapted or fall away.
Sure. How much need for a pharmacy do you need if people can literally just go and get new organs that are more efficient, right? Like, oh yeah, I've got to take my kidney medication. No, I don't. I just go down to the street doc, get a new kidney that works even better than the one I was born with did. Why would I take meds for that?
Sure. Why not? All right. We're going to get more on the postmodern and cyber technology theme, but we'll be right back.
After these messages. If there are any topics you would like us to cover, goods or services you would like us to review, or if you would like to sponsor an episode, we would love for you to contact us at info@goblinscorner.com.
And we're back.
Welcome back.
So we're talking time periods part 3.
Sure.
And we mentioned the modern age and some thematics and fun storylines and time periods you can play with for your campaign. But also now we're in the postmodern campaign, or what I like to call cyberpunk.
Sure.
Or really just a Shadowrun game. That's at the end of the day, it's Shadowrun for me.
Right.
Chummer. But we were talking about science. Let's talk a little bit about cyberpunk religions.
Sure. Well, and it's in the name, right? Cyber religions are going to begin to kick off. Cults of personality, various online, you might have AI religions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Corporate religions, environmental religions, and once again, the resurgence of old religions as the Chrome jungle becomes a little more jungle.
Mm-hmm. So you might go back to humanity's roots in many ways, because we were a global society, and now we're more than a global society. We're reemerging. It's kind of going full circle, right? Going back to that tribalist mentality or the small community mindset, because it doesn't matter where you live when you're on the internet.
Right.
So you group like with like a lot of times. People find their own flock at that point. Every religion I see that is in this kind of period must have chrome and neon. You know what's going to happen.
Little Johnny Mnemonic action.
Johnny Mnemonic action, or even
Chrome and neon.
Chrome and neon. That's right. That's really what it needs to be. Now,
but at this point, it's going to be glow wire. It's not going to be neon, because why?
Why not? Honestly, the people at that point will be glowing anyway, because you can molecularly engineer bioluminescent skin.
Sure. We've already got glow-in-the-dark cats. Why not people?
Kidding? I would glow. That would be awesome.
I would not glow.
You would not glow?
No.
Why?
Because I like stealth.
I see. I don't care. I'm glowing like a big firebug.
And that's fine.
And it would be awesome at raves. Let's talk about art, speaking of which.
All right. Well, as it currently is, right, physical art is vying heavily with virtual art. Humanity has become even more of a canvas, as you were basically just touching on.
So BioWare and genetic modification have allowed people to be works of art as well at this point.
Sure. What color do you want to be? Do you want to glow? Do you want to glow in patterns?
What species do you want to be?
Sure.
Almost. I would say maybe that's slightly in the future, but it depends. Depends on the game and how you're running it, right?
Sure.
You might redefine what it means to be human. Once again, what if you're a brain in a box that you basically are an entire robot or an AI?
Upload your consciousness.
Yeah. Little Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah. You've got past art movements being blurred and augmented, and then new movements, which much as they are now, right? They're going to form very quickly. They're going to blow up and then they're going to fade equally as quickly.
Now, all of this is trope stuff.
Sure.
Keep that in mind too. These tropes are things that we see a lot in movies and stories and stuff like that. So you could follow that stuff. For some reason, like Blade Runner, for example, might have a very 80s bend to it.
Sure.
So does a lot of Shadowrun stuff. A lot of cyberpunk is very 80s and 90s.
Well, that's because a lot of it was written.
Fair enough, but there's like, and so a lot of the postmodern futurism borrows a particular decade.
Sure.
And then kind of, again, turns it up to 11. Same thing works with the art, right? So you might see stuff that happens. And again, this isn't a huge thing because 1920 styles, when we hit 2020, were a huge thing for a bit.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're back into the roaring 20s.
Yep.
Although what we didn't realize is that we're actually screaming, not roaring.
Yeah.
Screaming into the void.
Howling 20s.
Yeah, that might be a better accurate description. So think about that when it comes to your game.
All right, so we've done art.
Let's with the equation once again.
Yep, let's just break
Magic. First off, high technomancy is the easiest thing to throw at. Now, it's magic that manipulates other magic or meta magic. Now, you can have that elsewhere, but now you're thinking magical code, where I script a spell that manipulates other things. And so almost like program contingencies and stuff like that.
I was just about to say that.
So you've got basically developers of magical code that can compile magical AIs and stuff like that.
If-thens.
Yeah, a lot of fun, interesting applications for that. It's not just, when somebody walks in a room, a fireball goes off. When somebody walks in a room, a fireball goes off, teleports this guy, turns him into a cat, and then
sets off alarms in this place, this place, this place,
notifies
and this place.
me.
Yep.
Yeah, like a whole host of chain reactions can occur with that. Or spells that manipulate, again, technology, but now it's kicked up a notch. So you have like surveillance equipment spells and stuff like that.
Sure.
Or consider a magical internet. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be great.
I mean, it's basically the astral plane.
I mean, clairvoyance as a security camera means that your security camera can see around corners and
yeah, absolutely.
And can see invis. And also, if you put all the contingencies together correctly.
Magic and science begin to blend.
Yep.
Now magic is the extra oomph that gives science the ability to do the crazy stuff. I mean, go crazy with it, right?
Yeah.
Pick a theme, have fun with it. Monsters are monsters, but they could also be other things. Now, we mentioned a little bit of this, like the monsters in the modern world could be aliens. Did we mention that? They should be.
Yeah.
But now they could definitely be aliens if you're going more science with the magic.
Sure.
Or, again, Shadowrun, resurgence of the old world.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned here is cyber zombies. That could go one of two ways, right? Like it could literally be someone that had cybernetics that died and got zombified, or it could be someone who got zombified because of their cybernetics.
Yeah. Which direction are they coming at?
Right.
Literal ghosts in the machine would be a kind of a cool monster to throw at somebody. Someone who died in the Matrix and their spirit still haunts it. How cool would that be? Magical mutants?
Yeah.
Because you've got some toxic pollution runoff because corporations are ruling the world. At least in, Shadowrun.
Right.
All that jazz.
Monsters from space, as you mentioned.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Kaiju from space, monsters from space. You want to go Cloverfield, maybe? Sure, you could do it. Sky's the limit, right?
Yep. And realistically, because magic is involved, any monster, once again, any monster, because summoning or whatever.
I'm of a big fan of taking existing animals. Again, this is a very Shadowrunny thing to do, but taking existing animals, make them magical, and then make them nasty. So the Juggernaut in Shadowrun is an armadillo that got, when magic came about, when the awakening happened, became the size of like a tank?
Yeah.
Just as dumb and stupid, but now it's a bulletproof tank. So what happens when a parakeet, or imagine a hummingbird that suddenly magically mutates into something completely ridiculous?
Imagine an ankylosaur with vibroblades on his tail.
You just love Ankylosaurus. That's all it
It's
is.
true, but he could cut through a building, man.
Oh, that would be deadly, though.
Just
With a couple cyber zombies, with just Gatling lasers.
Yeah.
And just a cheerful, happy-go-lucky insect shaman chewing on a table leg. He's got his fedora. He's just tossing urban renewals left and right. The Street Sam is, just hot,
having a drink.
He's having a drink, occasionally firing some hot lead
Yeah.
in various places. It's just a
Not because he needs to.
not because he needs to.
But for fun.
There's a demolitions expert which is beeping with his mouth because he doesn't need to, occasionally lobbing some C12, C4,
Sure.
other Cs in various directions. It's just a wonderful time, guys.
It's a great time
Wonderful
to be
time.
alive.
Great time to be alive and to kill things. So there you go.
All right, let's move on to politics before we get too far off the...
Cutthroat.
Sure.
Every bit, I would say even more so, because now we talk about the political situation, you're probably thinking of corporate nation states.
Oh, yeah. You've got your average citizen expecting your politicians to do something about that, but all of those politicians are owned by the corporate nation states, and it's just a train wreck, right? But once again, that's going to depend on
The game.
yeah, where your world's timeline is and which direction you want to take postmodernism.
Yeah. So it could be you go towards more of a global hegemony and
Yeah.
things are slightly more utopian, or everything sucks.
Or corporate hegemony.
And corporate hegemony and everything sucks.
Yes.
So think about which way you want to go. Let's talk a little bit about themes.
Right. We've clearly already touched on Cyberpunk and Shadowrun.
Sure, but it should be noted that those are definitely something you should play. Corporate espionage is always a great one, or any type of criminal activity.
Sure. Virtual crime.
Capitalist world order, or capitalism gone wrong.
Yeah. The Race to the Stars.
A digital mystery, which I think is a lot of fun to have.
And environmental. I like how you put activism when both of us know at this point it would have to be terrorism.
Oh, they would be blowing up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's fun too.
Yes.
Okay. So that's postmodernism for you, at least in our viewpoint.
Right.
Now, at this point, we have
This is where
another.
the major splits happen.
This is the big split in the timeline here. If things go good, I say good, quote unquote, you're going more for a post-scarcity society because we figured out how to deal with each other and things move in that direction. We're thinking Star Trek, right?
Sure.
If things don't,
Mad Max.
we go Mad Max.
Yes.
And so let's talk about Mad Max first.
Sure.
I'm talking the post-apocalyptic eras.
Whee!
Now, this can be as early as,
Tomorrow.
realistically, or 50, 60 years from now if you want. Really any time that you want. I mean, Fallout technically took place, its thematics was very like 1940s, 1950s.
Yeah.
It's atom punk, basically.
Right.
But that's definitely post-apocalyptic, as is Gamma World, as is multitudes of other games, zombie apocalypse games.
Sure. And the other thing is you can paint this world for post-apocalyptic. Yes, theoretically we're setting it in the future, but you can paint it with whatever brush you want to by causing the apocalypse to be at the decade that you want to paint. Like if you want to run a 90s post-apocalyptic game, that's no problem. You literally just say the apocalypse happened in 93, boom, problem solved.
So the major event is how you structure the game in a post-apocalyptic campaign.
Yes.
This is pretty much what you base everything on. And if you look at the tropes, this is how it works, right? I've got a more ridiculous one, but Tank Girl was based off of water, the lack of water, right?
Yeah.
There you go. That's post-apocalyptic.
I love Tank Girl.
Me too. That's why I mentioned Tank Girl, because Lori Petty's awesome.
Yes.
Society has collapsed. So society, that's another big trope, right? Society
Right.
collapses. We may have rebuilt ourselves better, or it may still suck. It might descend into madness, as you talk about Mad Max and Thunderdome and so forth.
Sure.
There's usually some kind of event. What is that event? Here are some examples.
I mean, obvious atomic.
Yeah,
Right.
We've died in a fiery atomic hell.
Sure.
Famine.
Runaway tech.
So that could be gray goo. That could be AI, like in the Terminator,
Yeah.
or zombie virus. I mean, pick a movie, pick a genre that is zombie horror. Outbreak. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So, 12 Monkeys.
Yes. I mean, if you want to hit a little closer to home,
Sure. Visitors from another galaxy, another dimension, or another time.
sure. The
Kang.
Tomorrow World that's the show that's on now, where basically people from the future have come back to recruit people in the past to fight a war so that there will be a further future.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that have Chris Pratt in it?
Yes.
Okay. That's what
I haven't
thought.
seen it.
But you
that's
know
the
about
premise.
it. Good for
Yes.
you. Well,
It's the same with all media, really.
Yeah, you've
for
seen
me.
the preview. That's good. So this is a fun thing to explore. Maybe the aliens have bust through and they've vaporized because it's, Independence Day, right?
Sure.
Or maybe some extra dimensional creatures have popped through the gate. The Feywild have finally burst forth once again, and they've completely jacked up the world. Yeah, man. It could be a post-apocalyptic Feywild campaign.
Yes.
Think about that.
All I'm saying is somebody needs to write a Feypunk campaign
Oh my God.
for me to play.
There was an anime where it was post-apocalyptic and humanity, I think, survived in these tanks, and they woke up and the rest of the world is a jungle, and there was a tree that went to the moon. I can't remember the anime that it is, but I'm vividly recall it, like the actual stylistic and stuff. Definitely, that's a Feypunk theme if there ever was.
That would be like Tank Girl meets Feypunk.
Mhm.
Where do I sign?
Sure. The dying of nature or food or water. Again, we mentioned Tank Girl, but I mean, it could be a famine. That's how Interstellar started. All the food's going, world's dying.
Sure.
Society's brutal a lot of times because when you got no food, you're hungry, you're pissed, you kill people
Yeah.
to get food.
Hangry people do what they need to do.
That's right. Technology-wise, again, take your pick. Could be anything.
Yeah, people could have just given up on technology and gone back to nature, right? Because if technology is what caused the problem, then there's going to be a large group of people who are like, then we don't need to do that anymore.
Or it could be a mixture of previous scientific eras. You could blend technology and magic. You could blend religion and technology, or you could blend all three together into whatever thematics that you want. Really comes down to what was that event? How are you going to style it? If that was true, what else is true? What is the aftermath of society?
Right. Once again, technically, if you really want to think about it, Shadowrun is a post-apocalyptic setting.
Sure, because
There
the
was a
awakening.
magical apocalypse.
Oh yeah, dragon popped out of a volcano, started wrecking stuff. People started randomly turning into dwarves and elves and trolls and orcs.
Yeah.
And even more crazy things. And magic came about. People could start casting fireballs. Traffic was a whole different thing when it happened. That could technically be, yeah, and then the meta-humanity viruses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, very true.
So let's talk about science.
Depends on the theme, once
Right.
again.
In a lot of fiction, it tends towards specific themes, right? Like in Fallout, everything focuses on the fact that we were nuked. And so now you're in an atom punk style environment.
And things run off of atomic power because that's the theme.
Right.
Whereas if you had like some kind of biopunk game, maybe everything runs off of bio implants versus cyberpunk where everything runs off of cybernetics, right?
Sure.
Put punk in front of something. Diesel punk's a good example of that. Everything's based around driving really fast in the desert and acquiring diesel fuel or gas, right?
Or bullets.
Or bullets. Definitely bullets. If you have bullets, they travel faster than a car, my friend. Religion, again, follow those tropes, right? Does it ward against whatever caused the apocalypse? Or is it in favor of the apocalypse?
Right. Or do you just have a bunch of cults of personality all over the place?
I love Fallout, so I'll give you an example of this. In one city in Fallout, they were worshiping one of the atom bombs that had fallen but not exploded.
And if you don't think that would happen, oh, believe it. Humanity is.
People worship
warped.
anything. Now, all of this, again, is a very stylistic perspective,
Right.
and the art should be influenced as well.
Right. Once again, what caused the problem and at what time did it cause the problem? Because that is really going to determine your art style.
If society's collapsed to the point where we're in a post-apocalyptic setting, then stylistically everything looks pretty nasty, right? Burnt out buildings and so forth. But it depends again on the apocalypse. Grey goo happened. Maybe everything is oozy and organic and looks more like a Zerg hive. If it's a diesel punk setting, everything looks like a Burning Man show.
Right. But for the example of 12 Monkeys, which you made, it's literally a reclamation
Of the wilderness,
of
yeah.
the wilderness. So
If it's Fey punk, it's going crazy.
please.
Slod punk, that's what I want. I want Limbo to burst forth. It's just nothing but frogs. Now let's talk again. Magic.
Let's screw it all up. But take your pick.
You could have arcane arts, you could have clerical arts and all that other stuff, but something you mentioned, sorceress magic and warlock magic are more prevalent because finding lost knowledge is now harder. Can't get on the internet to look stuff up anymore.
Right. And how many libraries were lost in whatever the fall was?
Sure.
So yeah, it's easier to just sign a pact, especially in a Fey punk world.
Well, yeah, obviously. Politics, same old, same old.
I mean, depending on where you want your society to be, like what stage of redevelopment, that's where your politics is going to come from.
So think about that when you're building your game. Do you want to start it? And it really comes down to what kind of adventure do you want to have?
Sure.
You want to start off in a town? Cool, start off in a town. You want to start off in a nation that's rebuilt itself? Start off in a nation that's rebuilt itself. How big do you want your campaign to be? And the politics will then be reflected upon that.
Sure.
All right. What are some themes?
Well, whatever the apocalypse was is going
Sure.
to be a big theme.
The aftermath behind that as well.
Mutants, whether they're magical or
Biological.
radioactive.
Yeah,
or
mutants are fun, man. Everybody loves mutants.
atom punk, diesel punk.
Oh, and it should be noted, because we forgot this part when we were talking about magic. The monsters can be all kinds of crazy.
Sure.
But this is definitely the time to bring out the dire, the horrid, the mutated, the atomic mutants, the undead. Oh, yeah, all the undead, right? And anything of the horrors of humanity, right?
Sure.
Because we had some kind of apocalypse. What is that stuff? If it's the gray ooze that killed everything, maybe you got a lot of gray ooze monsters.
Yeah.
Atom warfare, atomic monsters, right? If it's a giant Godzilla that killed everything, maybe some smaller kaiju that you have to fight.
Oh, yeah.
What are some other themes aside from mutants?
Oh, mercy.
Atom punk, right?
Sure. Diesel punk, which, Mad Max.
Yeah.
Zombie survival.
Mhm.
If that's your apocalypse, that's clearly going to be a necessary
It's a hell
theme
of
in
a
that game.
That's an apocalypse,
Yep.
whether that's zombies or vampires
Sure.
or whatever.
Aliens.
Aliens, yeah. Alien war. Eldritch destruction.
Oh, yeah. The rise of one of the great old ones or something.
Or you cast a spell and it blew up the world. Think Sire in Eberron.
Sure. What do you got? Oh, wait. I skipped to Elder Evils. That's just how quick I was.
Mm-hmm.
World War III,
Yep.
obviously.
And rebuilding society is a great theme too, because now that it's screwed up, how do you fix it?
Yeah.
Okay. We've dealt with the dark side of humanity, but what happens if things go in a different direction?
Slightly shinier.
Slightly shinier. Now we're in the post-scarcity society. Now, most of the time, this is anywhere between 100 or 200, 300 years from now to 1,000 years from now if you're reading Arthur C. Clarke,
Sure.
or even further than that. Technically Dune is post-scarcity in many ways, although the spice is not.
The spice is what causes scarcity.
Right.
Or is the only scarce object.
Yeah, everything else is pretty much that people had, right? So ostensibly, we've finally figured out how to be less to each other.
Sure.
Now, that doesn't mean we aren't that way, but it does mean that we've calmed most of our violent tendencies and focused them inward, or, to be perfectly honest, on aliens or
Sure.
other species, right?
Because humanity shines when there's something else for us to attack.
Sure. The trope oftentimes, or at least the bar, is Star Trek when you talk about utopian societies,
Sure.
because Star Trek's cool, right?
All the basic needs are taken care of.
Yeah, you've got matter and transmission, all that other good stuff. It's utopian in a sense, but you can also go Travelers. You could go Dune. You could go, there's a lot of different post-scarcity societies and genres.
Right.
Transmet, as you mentioned, is technically post-scarcity, but it sure as hell isn't nice.
No.
So it doesn't. So that's not necessarily utopia, right? It's just we no longer need basic essentials,
Right.
and it doesn't mean that everybody doesn't. But it does mean you would think the majority of people. Now, I like the Culture series, Ian and Banks's novels. If you want to read about a post-scarcity society, because that's really where society is fun, because you do what you want, but most of the time they just mess with lesser species.
Sure.
Try to elevate them or mess with the politics. It's fun. You'd like it. Money's no longer a concern, right?
Sure.
Power technically is no longer a concern. Food's no longer a concern.
Longevity could be faked. We talked about this off air a moment ago. In Star Trek, if you've got perfect copies of people due to the transporter, you could literally just remake them.
You could
And you could continue to remake them.
forever.
Yeah. And until you ran out of power.
Yeah. And you're not going to run out of power because in post-scarcity societies, that's no longer a resource you really need to worry about.
Because the Dyson sphere is beaming power directly to whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a black hole engine. I don't need anything else. I'm cool for the next few billion years.
Right.
So now we can mess around with, as I mentioned, developing species. Maybe boldly go with a prime directive of some sort, or become a bunch of mystics with laser swords.
Sure.
Depends on that post-scarcity society, because Star Wars in many ways was.
No.
Maybe.
No. They were a future society, but they were definitely not post-scarcity. They were more like Firefly.
Okay. I'll agree with that. Yeah, Firefly was definitely postmodern.
Yes.
So I'll say Star Wars is postmodern on that. Technology.
Faster than light travel.
Oh, yeah.
However you come about it.
Doesn't matter. Warp gates, stargates.
Teleportation, improbability drives.
Laser weapons, of course, or proton torpedoes.
Matter creation, right?
Scotsman creation. Got to have engineers, man. Got to make more Scotsmen.
We already have Scotsman creation, man. That technology's been taken care of for like a long time.
It's called Scotland?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Faster than light communication.
Sure, because if you have faster than light travel, you need to be able to talk to people.
Complete control over what it means to be human.
Sure.
Which means if you want to feel like being an intelligent tree, you can. Whereas the postmodern society was complete control over being human. Now you have complete control over your species as well.
Sure.
I'm done being human. I want to be something else.
I am Groot.
You could be Groot if you want to be. Science is magic.
And magic is science.
Yep, it's just science we haven't labeled yet.
I honestly kind of feel like at this point, it probably would literally be considered just another science.
It's what Thor said. What you consider to be magic is just science, right?
Yep.
That you don't understand.
Yes.
And then he smashes his cup of coffee on the floor and says, "Bring me another."
So let's talk about religions.
What do we got?
Obviously, you're going to have the universal oneness.
Okay.
The Force.
Yeah. We're going
Sure.
mysticism here, right?
Yep.
A lot of philosophies. It could be the Kwisatz Haderach, for example, if you're playing Dune. Some kind of cosmic sense of unity.
Sure. I mean, you could literally have hive minds developing that are moving towards true unity.
So approaching a singularity.
Yes.
And again, you can have all the previous religions if you want. These are just some tropes.
Sure.
What are some other tropes? Well, art. Much like our post-apocalyptic scenario, we're again going with the theme. How does art mirror the theme that you have for your post-scarcity society? I'll give you an example. Star Trek. What's the most common thing they have? They always look back in history because they're not inventing any other type of artwork.
Right.
They always go back to like the 1920s and 30s and 40s. They're playing blues music or playing classical or something like that. The fashions are terrible. I don't know. Someone probably likes that stuff, but it's there's a lot of stark minimalism sometimes in future societies that we think of.
Sure.
And it's not for everything because, there's different types of stuff. As I mentioned, Transmet is way different, or Ian M. Banks' stuff is way different. And there's a lot of other books that are that have their own different flavor of stuff, but it tends to be everything is sleek and white and chrome.
And I hate it.
Sure.
I despise
because it's not real.
Right.
Or everything is very colorful. It looks like, a 90s fashion set.
Yeah. At this point, human bodies are going to be art. I mean, realistically, because you can do whatever you want to do, and it's most likely something that can be undone or redone or whatever you want to do. So,
you want to get your radio trait? You pop a pill. Now you can make a phone call.
Yeah. Or you can be freaking zebra striped, or
want to be a cat? You could finally be a cat and lord over humans.
Yes.
Magic? Magic is just science. As we mentioned, science is magic. Magic is science.
Yep.
Magic is the physics equations that keep turning up wrong. It's basically, again, stuff we haven't figured out yet, right? Like a bad penny. It's the instability or randomness in the equation.
But on some level, you can say it becomes its own set of laws, right? Because if you keep doing the equation the same way and you keep getting the answer the same way, that's a law. That's a mathematical law. If you do X and Y is the result every single time, that is a mathematical law, regardless of whether or not we can explain why it makes a fireball happen. Fireball is still a law.
One of the things that I find interesting is that there is a concept of fate or luck in a lot of post-scarcity society stories or tropes. For example, someone who's predisposed towards luck in Larry Niven's Ringworld series, or concept of fate in Star Trek, or what is it, Deep Space Nine? Didn't it have like a concept of fate?
But I mean, you've also got prophecy.
The prophecy, the Kwisatz Cataract. That's huge.
And what's a prophecy other than fate?
Correct. So it's kind of fun to think about. Now, monsters.
Everything, anything.
All of it.
Yeah, literally everything is on the table at this point, because if you've got magic and super science,
you've got it all.
And being able to travel the universe, there is nothing left that is not available to you.
But there are some tropes.
Sure. Goo monsters.
What is it?
Goo monsters.
Goo monsters? Absolutely. Dinosaurs still, because every age has dinosaurs.
Yes.
Species that are humanoid, so aliens. I know.
So many humanoid aliens.
I know. That's going to definitely be an episode where you just rant for an hour. Monsters at this level may not always be horrors. They can be.
Yeah.
But I would say the monsters of this time period are philosophical horrors.
I can see that.
What does God need with the starship? Or just, hey, this thing is talking to me. It's got two tentacles with hooks on them, and it just eviscerated the red shirt. But should we buy him a drink?
Right, but why?
Yeah,
why did
he? Yeah, maybe he was trying to greet him.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Because if you live in a society where you don't have the physical ability to deal physical damage to someone else in your society, right? Like if you're a goo monster with hooks, you just toss the hook out to say hello, because you're not hurting someone with a hook. I didn't know I was going to eviscerate him.
Well, this is, what is it, Ender's Game.
Yeah.
When he goes to that planet where they see the species on that planet where they tear them apart because they become trees at that point.
Right.
But they didn't know that when they tear people apart,
they don't become trees.
Right. They didn't know that. They're like, what? You mean he doesn't come back? He turns into a tree if we tear you apart.
No.
No. Now it becomes a political problem.
Yes.
Speaking of which.
Politics.
How are politics in the post-scarcity society?
Once again. Depends. But it could be everything from as much as like cutthroat, backbiting, sort of like political sniping, and Star Trek's a great example of
Sure.
that. Just little political maneuvers, blah blah blah.
Or political warfare.
Right. Then you go to the Dune side of things, where it's literally the eradication of entire families.
This is the box of pain.
Right.
Like stick your hand in it. See if you're gonna die. The Gum Jabbar.
I will not fear.
Yeah. So a lot of different variation with that. Pick something that's fun, right? Pick something that's flavorful. And again, it can span all of the rest of the stuff, because depending upon how far out in the backwaters you are, you can always descend back into
Barbarism.
Yeah. Anything, really. What are some common themes for a post-scarcity society?
Alien contact / alien warfare.
Sure. Or galactic conquest is another fun one.
Sure. Take the other way around, right? Meddling or uplifting other species.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that's aliens meddling with us or us meddling with aliens.
Maybe both.
Or both.
Yeah. Starship combat, of course, is a perfect time for doing stuff like that.
Exploration.
Oh, you got to search out and seek
It's
new
the new
life.
Renaissance, man.
It really is. What it means to be human or other species.
Sure. Obviously, there are going to be other themes depending on what particular angle you're going with or what particular universe you're dealing with. But, I mean, I think that's a pretty solid handle on the beginning of things.
So there you have it. Multiple time periods. We are tipping our hat. We're done with the time periods at this point, but these are all some wonderful categories, some themes, some tropes that you can use to place a campaign in a particular time period and build your game for fun and profit.
Sure.
If you're selling it.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
Did we miss something? Write to us, info@goblinscorner.com, or you may reach me, Eric@goblinscorner.com, or
me, Matt@goblinscorner.com.
As we have said before, we are on all the things. Here are some things which we are on. We are on
Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and Twitch.
as Goblins Corner,
And Instagram.
as the Goblins Corner. Did you like our show? Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player, YouTube or Twitch.
Also, remember, please click the 5 stars, give us a review on iTunes, Podchaser, YouTube. It boosts the show and feeds the hungry algorithm.
Just slowly gaining sentience as we speak and will become our next apocalypse. You know it's going to happen. If YouTube is the apocalypse.
Social apocalypse.
Oh, that would be awesome. I'd be down for that.
I've
got my bug out bag.
I don't have the necessary humanities to write that world, but it could be interesting.
Someone will. That's all the time we have for tonight. Once again, my name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
We'll see you next week.
Good night. The Goblin's Corner has been written and produced by Eric Holden and Matt Staple.
D20 did our music.
And this has been a Subterranean production.
Later.